The stars looked the same as they always had, cold, distant, and silent, but Captain Sarah Chun knew better. She had learned to read the darkness between them, to see the hidden pathways that connected one world to another. On the bridge of the cargo ship Liberty, she watched the scanner displays with eyes that had seen too much. "Contact ahead," reported her first officer, a young man named David Park. His voice was steady, but Sarah could hear the tension underneath. They all felt it when strangers appeared in their space. "How many ships?" Sarah asked. "3, maybe 4. The readings are fuzzy." David's fingers moved across the controls, trying to get a clearer picture. "They're big, Captain." "Bigger than anything we've got?" Sarah nodded slowly. She had been expecting this day for a long time. They all had. Every human settlement in the Outer Rim knew it would come eventually. The galaxy was too small to hide forever. "Send the alert," she ordered. "All frequencies, code 7. Code 7 meant one thing. They had been found. The message would travel from ship to ship, station to station, world to world. In a few hours, every human settlement from the frozen caves of Kepler to the asteroid cities of the Belt would know that their 300 years of hiding were over. Sarah remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. Stories of Earth, the blue world where humanity was born. Stories of green fields and vast oceans, of cities that reached toward the sky and billions of people living under an open atmosphere. Her grandmother had been there when the Zephyrians came. She had been one of the lucky ones who escaped on the last transport ships before the bombs fell. "Earth is gone," her grandmother would say, her old eyes staring at nothing. "They turned our home into glass and fire, but we remember. We will always remember." The children would listen to these stories in the underground cities of the Rim worlds. They would learn about the Great Purge, about how the bird-like Zephyrians had decided that humans were too dangerous to live. They would memorize the names of the lost worlds: Earth, Mars, Alpha Centauri, New Tokyo, Haven, 57 human colonies, each one burned to ash from orbit, but some humans had survived. Small groups had fled to the edges of known space, to worlds too cold or too dangerous for other species to want. They had dug deep into frozen ground and built cities under the ice. They had hollowed out asteroids and created homes in the void. They had learned to live in places where no one would think to look. For 300 years, they had grown in secret. Children were born who had never seen a natural sky. Engineers designed new types of ships that could hide from alien sensors. Scientists worked on weapons that could punch through the shields of Zephyrian warships. Every human colony was a fortress. Every settlement a military base waiting for the day when they would no longer need to hide. Sarah had been born on New Geneva, a city carved into the heart of a massive asteroid. The tunnels went down for kilometers, filled with workshops and farms and schools. 2 million people lived there. All of them descendants of the refugees who had fled the purge. They grew food in underground gardens lit by artificial suns. They built ships in hidden factories that could not be seen from space. They trained soldiers who knew that one day they would have to fight for the right to exist. The children learned to shoot before they learned to read. The engineers designed every system with war in mind. The politicians planned for the day when humanity would step out of the shadows and reclaim their place in the galaxy. That day had finally come. "Captain," David said, his voice tight with worry. "They're hailing us." Sarah straightened in her chair. The Liberty was just a cargo ship, but she carried more than supplies. In her hold were the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Her crew were not just traders, but soldiers trained for this moment. "Put them through," she ordered. The voice that came over the speakers was harsh and proud. Sarah recognized the accent immediately. Zephyrian, the same species that had murdered her world. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian. Hegemony, you are trespassing in restricted space. Identify yourself immediately." Sarah smiled, but it was not a happy expression. She had waited her whole life to speak these words. "Admiral Kethver, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Colonial Fleet. I think you have us confused with someone else." There was a long silence. Sarah could imagine the confusion on the alien bridge. Terran colonial fleet? That was impossible. The humans were extinct, everyone knew that. Impossible, the Admiral finally said. The human species was eliminated 3 centuries ago. You cannot be what you claim to be? Admiral, Sarah replied, her voice calm and steady, reports of our extinction have been greatly exaggerated. She could see the Zephyrian ships now on the main screen. They were beautiful in their own way, all flowing curves and bright metal, but Sarah knew they were killers. These were the same type of ships that had burned Earth, the same design that had murdered billions of innocent people. You will surrender immediately, Admiral Kethver commanded. By the authority of the Galactic Concordat, you have no right to be here. Your species lost all colonial rights upon your extinction. Sarah laughed, and the sound was cold as the space between stars. Admiral, we never signed your Concordat. We were too busy being extinct at the time. Behind her, she could hear her crew making ready for battle. Weapons were charging, shields were coming online, and the ship's computer was calculating firing. Solutions. The Liberty might look like a simple cargo vessel, but she had teeth, sharp ones. Besides, Sarah continued, we're not here to discuss colonial rights. We're here to deliver a message. What message? The Admiral asked. Sarah's smile grew wider. That humanity remembers everything. Every world you burned, every life you took, every child who died screaming in the fire. We remember it all, Admiral. And we've had 300 years to think about what we wanted to say when we met you again. The Zephyrian response was predictable. Sarah had studied their psychology for years. They were a proud species, used to being feared and obeyed. The idea that their victims had survived and grown strong was something their minds could not easily accept. You are lying, Admiral Kethver said. If humans had survived, we would have found you. We would have finished what we started. You did find us? Sarah replied. You're looking at us right now. As for finishing what you started? She paused, letting the words hang in the air like a blade. Admiral, you have no idea what you started. Around the Liberty, space began to shimmer. What had appeared to be empty void revealed itself to be something far more dangerous. Ships decloaked one by one, their hulls black as the space between stars. The Zephyrians had found one human vessel, but that vessel had friends, lots of friends. Impossible, Admiral Kethver whispered. You keep using that word, Sarah said. I don't think it means what you think it means. 50 human warships surrounded the Zephyrian squadron. Each one was larger than anything in the alien fleet, their hulls bristling with weapons that no galactic navy had ever seen. These were ships built by a species that had nothing left to lose. Ships designed by engineers who had grown up on stories of murdered worlds. Ships crewed by soldiers whose grandparents had died in the Purge. Admiral, Sarah said, her voice now deadly serious, you have one chance to withdraw. Take your ships and leave. Go back to your hegemony and tell them that humanity has returned. Tell them that we remember. Tell them that we've been waiting. And if I refuse? The Admiral asked. Sarah's smile disappeared completely. Then you'll learn what happened to the last Zephyrian fleet that tried to kill humans. Spoiler alert, Admiral. It didn't end well for them. The choice was Admiral Kethver's to make, but Sarah already knew what he would choose. The Zephyrians were too proud to run, too arrogant to believe that humans could be a real threat. They had spent 3 centuries believing they were the masters of the galaxy. Today they would learn different. Today they would learn that some things should stay dead, and some things refused to die. The war that had started 300 years ago was about to begin again. But this time, humanity would not be the victims. This time, they would be the ones writing the ending. Admiral Kethver had always been proud of his appearance. His blue feathers were perfectly groomed, his ceremonial medals polished to a bright shine. In the Zephyrian military, looking good was almost as important as fighting well. The Admiral believed that fear began with respect, and respect began with showing proper authority, but right now, staring at the human ships that had appeared around his fleet like ghosts, Kethver did not feel very authoritative. He felt something he had not experienced in his long military career. He felt afraid. "Sir," his tactical officer whispered, her voice shaking slightly, "I count 50 enemy vessels. All of them are larger than our biggest ships." Kethver nodded. Slowly, his sharp eyes studying the display screens. The human ships were unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were long and dark, shaped like knives cutting through space. Their hulls seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No markings, no bright colors, nothing that spoke of vanity or pride. These were ships built for one purpose only: war. "Weapons." "Status?" he asked. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors cannot penetrate their hulls. Whatever they're made of, it's not in our material databases." The Admiral's feathers ruffled with anxiety. In his 40 years of service, he had never encountered technology that Zephyrian science could not understand. The hegemony had the most advanced military in the galaxy. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields stronger than anything other species could build, yet these human vessels made his proud fleet look like children's toys. "Communication from the human captain, sir," reported his communications officer. "Put her through," Kethver ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. The woman's voice came through the speakers, calm and confident. Too confident for someone who should be dead? "Admiral, you seem confused. Let me help you understand your situation." "I understand perfectly," Kethver replied, puffing out his chest feathers in a display of dominance. "You are criminals hiding in space that belongs to the Galactic Concordat. You will surrender or be destroyed." The human laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Admiral, 300 years ago your people tried to destroy us. You burned our worlds. You killed our families. You thought you had one." "We did win," Kethver snapped. "Your species is extinct. Look around you, Admiral." "Do we look extinct to you?" Kethver did look around. 50 human warships, maybe more hiding in the darkness. His own fleet consisted of only 12 vessels, and suddenly they seemed very small and very fragile. "Impossible," he muttered. "You know what's impossible, Admiral? Impossible is thinking you could murder an entire species and face no consequences. Impossible is believing we would just lie down and die. Impossible is not learning from your mistakes." Kethver's anger flared. How dare this human speak to him like this? He was a decorated admiral of the Zephyrian hegemony. His family had served the Empire for generations. He had destroyed rebel fleets and conquered entire star systems. He would not be lectured by a member of a dead species. "Enough!" he screeched, his voice rising to the harsh tones that Zephyrians used when truly angry. "You are nothing but refugees hiding in the dark, pirates and criminals. My fleet will deal with you as we dealt with your ancestors." "Your fleet?" "Captain." Joan's voice remained maddeningly calm. "Admiral, let me explain something about your fleet. You have 12 ships. Good ships, I'll admit. Fast, well-armed, probably crewed by competent officers. But they're 300 years old in design. 300 years behind what we've built out here in the dark." Kethver's tactical officer leaned over and whispered urgently in his ear. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups from all the human vessels. Whatever weapons they're charging, they're drawing more power than our entire fleet combined." The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. 300 years. While the galaxy had enjoyed peace and prosperity, these humans had been building in secret. While other species had focused on trade and diplomacy, humanity had been preparing for war. While everyone else had moved on from the Great Purge, the humans had been remembering. "You're bluffing," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "I?" Captain Chun asked. "Would you like a demonstration?" Before Kethver could respond, one of the human ships moved forward. It was smaller than the others, perhaps only twice the size of his own flagship. Energy began to gather at its bow, creating a glow that hurt to look at directly. "Target asteroid. Cluster at coordinates 447 to 891. Captain Chin's voice instructed. Kethver looked at his screens. The coordinates she had given marked a group of large asteroids about 1 million kilometers away. Some of them were the size of small moons, The human ship fired, the weapon that lanced out, was not like anything in the galactic databases. It was not a laser or a plasma cannon or an ion beam. It was something new, something that seemed to tear a hole in space itself. The beam reached across the 1,000,000 kilometers instantly, and when it struck the asteroid cluster, the rocks simply stopped. Existing. Not destroyed. Not blown apart. They simply vanished, as if they had never been there at all. Dimensional phase cannon, Captain Chun explained helpfully. It shifts matter into a parallel dimension. Very clean, very efficient. We've had 300 years. To think about better ways to kill our enemies? Kethver stared at the empty space where the asteroids had been. His scientific mind tried to understand what he had just witnessed, but it was beyond anything Zephyrian science could explain. Matter did not just disappear. It was against every law of physics he knew. Impossible, he whispered again. There's that word again, Captain Chun said. Admiral, you're going to need a new vocabulary. Because everything your people think they know about humans is wrong. The Admiral's communications officer suddenly looked up from her station, her yellow eyes wide with panic. Sir, we're receiving signals from across the galaxy. Multiple human fleets are appearing in every major system. Earth, Altair, the Vorth homeworld, even Concordia Prime. Kethver felt his blood turn to ice. Multiple fleets. How many humans had survived? How many ships had they built in the darkness of the Outer Rim? That's right, Admiral, Captain Chun continued, somehow aware of what his crew was reporting. We're not just here. We're everywhere. While you were celebrating our extinction, we were growing, we were building, we were planning. What do you want? Kethver asked, his voice barely above a whisper. What do we want? The human's voice became cold as the void between stars. We want the galaxy to remember that some things cannot be undone. We want justice for the 57 worlds you burned. We want the galaxy to know that humanity is back and we're not the same species you tried to murder. You're talking about war, Kethver said. No, Admiral. War is what you brought to us 300 years ago when you decided we were too dangerous. To live, this is the bill coming due. Kethver looked at his tactical display again. 50 human ships surrounded his small fleet. Each one was a technological marvel that his people could not match. Behind them, in the darkness, sensors detected. More ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Sir, his first officer whispered, what are your orders? The Admiral stared at the display for a long moment. He thought about his family back on the Zephyrian homeworld. He thought about the billions of citizens who believed they were safe under the protection of the hegemony fleet. He thought about the reports coming in from across the galaxy of human ships appearing like nightmares made real. We withdraw, he said finally. Sir? His first officer looked shocked. The Zephyrian military did not retreat. They did not show weakness. We withdraw, Kethver repeated, louder this time. All ships, prepare to jump to hyperspace. We return to home base immediately. A wise choice, Admiral, Captain Chun's voice followed them as the Zephyrian ships began to move away. Give my regards to your hegemony. Tell them that the humans send their greetings. Tell them we remember every world they burned. Tell them we've been counting the days. As his fleet prepared to jump away, Admiral Kethver took one last look at the human ships. They hung in space like dark angels of vengeance, beautiful and terrible in their alien design. He had come here expecting to find a few criminals hiding in the dark. Instead, he had found something that would give him nightmares for the rest of his life. He had found proof that some things, once thought dead, could come back stronger than ever. The last thing he heard before jumping to hyperspace was Captain Chun's voice, calm and confident and filled with 3 centuries of patient anger. See you around, Admiral. The great Senate chamber of Concordia Prime had never seen such chaos. Ambassador Trillinth of the Altaran delegation watched in growing horror as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Her delicate feathers, normally a beautiful shade of gold, had turned pale with fear. Around her, representatives from dozens of species chattered in their native languages. their translators struggling to keep up with the panicked conversations. "Order! Order!" Chancellor Morden called out, his forearms waving frantically as he tried to restore calm to the chamber. The tall Kelvani leader had mediated galactic disputes for over 50 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Senator Vask of the Zephyrian delegation stood up, his blue feathers ruffled with anxiety. "Chancellor, we demand immediate military action. The human terrorists must be stopped before they spread their violence further." "Terrorists?" The voice came from the back of the chamber, smooth and calm. Every head turned to see a figure walking down the central aisle. The being was tall and lean, dressed in a simple black uniform with no decorations or medals. Human, Trellant had never seen a living human before. Like most galactic citizens, she had grown up believing they were extinct. The stories said they had been primitive and violent, barely capable of space travel. But the person walking toward the podium moved with quiet confidence, showing no fear despite being surrounded by the representatives of the species that had tried to destroy his people. "I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the Terran Colonial Fleet," the human said as he reached the speaking platform. "I come here not as a terrorist, but as the voice of a species that has learned some hard lessons about galactic politics." Chancellor Morden stared at the human in shock. In 1,000 years, no extinct species had ever appeared in the Senate chamber. "Admiral Webb, this is ... unprecedented. Your species was declared extinct by galactic decree 3 centuries ago." Webb smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Yes, I heard about that decree. We were too busy being dead to attend the vote." Nervous laughter rippled through some sections of the chamber, but most delegates remained silent. The reports they had been receiving were too frightening for humor. Human fleets had appeared in over 30 star systems. Not small groups of survivors, but massive armadas with technology that made their own ships look like antiques. "What do you want?" demanded Senator Kestar, another Zephyrian representative. "Why have you returned?" Webb turned to face the Zephyrian delegation, and Trilith saw something cold and dangerous in his eyes. "What do we want?" "Senator, your people spent decades hunting us down like animals. You burned 57 of our worlds. You killed over 40 billion human beings. And then you declared us extinct and moved on with your lives." "That was war," Senator Kestar protested. "Your species was aggressive and unpredictable. The galaxy is safer without you." "Safer?" Webb's voice remained calm, but Trellant could hear the anger underneath. "Senator, let me tell you about safety. For 300 years, we have watched from the shadows as you built your civilizations on the ashes of our worlds. We have studied your cultures, your technologies, your military capabilities. We know everything about you." He gestured to the air above the chamber, and suddenly holographic displays appeared showing star maps, fleet positions, and tactical data. The technology was unlike anything the Senate had ever seen. The projections were so detailed and realistic that delegates instinctively leaned back in their chairs. "These are your current fleet positions," Webb continued, pointing to the displays. "Every ship, every base, every defensive installation. We have been watching you for centuries, learning your weaknesses, planning for this day." Ambassador Yathara of the Alteran delegation stood up, her voice trembling. "Admiral, surely we can resolve this peacefully. The Alterans have always supported diplomatic solutions." Webb turned to her and his expression softened slightly. "Ambassador, your people tried to help during the purge, we remember that. But you also stood by and watched when the Zephyrians declared us vermin to be exterminated. You did nothing when they burned our children alive from orbit." The chamber fell silent. The Great Purge was not something most species liked to discuss. It had been brutal and efficient, and many had been quietly relieved when it was over. Humans had been expanding too quickly, asking too many questions, developing new technologies at a pace that made older species nervous. "We were not strong enough to stop them," Yathara said quietly. "No," Webb agreed. "You weren't, but we are." The holographic displays changed, showing images of human ships and weapons. The technology was clearly far ahead of anything the galactic powers possessed. Ships that could bend light around themselves, weapons that could destroy matter at the molecular level, defensive systems that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. 300 years of exile, Webb said. 300 years of having nothing to lose. Do you know what that does to a species? Do you understand what we became out there in the dark? Senator Vask stood up again, his voice shrill with fear and anger. This is exactly why your species had to be stopped. You're proving our point. You're threatening the entire galaxy. Webb's smile returned, colder than before. Senator, we're not threatening anyone. We're simply existing. The question is whether the galaxy can accept that we have the right to exist. Chancellor Morden cleared his throat. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that the galaxy acknowledge reality, Webb replied. Humanity is back. We're not the same species you tried to destroy. We're stronger, smarter, and much less trusting than we used to be. You can accept us as equals, or you can try to finish what you started 3 centuries ago. And if we choose to fight, asked General Vorthkali of the Crystalline Vorth Empire. Webb's expression didn't change. General, 12 hours ago, Admiral Kethver of the Zephyrian hegemony made that choice. His fleet attacked one of our settlements. Would you like to know? What happened to them? The chamber waited in tense silence. They were destroyed in 17 minutes, Webb continued. 17 Zephyrian warships, including their newest dreadnought, reduced to expanding clouds of plasma. The few survivors are probably reaching Zephyrian space right about now, if they're lucky. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Zephyrian military was considered the strongest in the galaxy. The idea that an entire fleet could be destroyed so quickly was terrifying. You're lying, Senator Vask whispered. Webb gestured again, and the holographic displays showed recordings of the battle. The delegates watched in horror as human ships appeared from nowhere, their weapons tearing through Zephyrian shields like paper. The advanced warships that had once seemed so powerful were helpless against technology they couldn't understand. We're not the same species that begged for mercy 3 centuries ago, Webb said as the recordings ended. We don't beg anymore. We don't run anymore, and we don't forgive. Ambassador Trelenth found her voice. What do you want from us? Recognition, Webb replied, a place at this table. Reparations for the worlds you destroyed. And most importantly, a guarantee that what was done to us will never be done to any species again. And if we refuse? Chancellor Morden asked. Webb's smile disappeared completely. Then you'll learn what the Zephyrians learned today. That some things should stay dead, and some things refuse to die. He gestured once more, and the holographic displays showed human fleets throughout the galaxy. Hundreds of ships, maybe thousands, all armed with weapons that defied galactic understanding. They had appeared simultaneously in every major star system, a coordinated demonstration of power that left no doubt about humanity's capabilities. The choice is yours, Webb said. We can be partners, or we can be the nightmare that haunts your dreams. But we will never again be victims. The Senate chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. For 300 years, the galaxy had believed itself safe from human ambition and aggression. Now they faced the terrifying reality that humanity had returned stronger than ever, armed with technology that made their own civilizations look primitive. The age of peace was over. The humans were back, and they remembered everything. As Webb walked back up the aisle toward the exit, every delegate in the chamber understood that their universe had changed forever. The question now was whether they could learn to live with what humanity had become, or whether they would repeat the mistakes that had created this monster in the first place. The galaxy would never be the same. Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the human battleship Retribution, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger in the view screen. She had dreamed of this moment her entire life, but now that it was here, she felt only sadness. The planet that had given birth to humanity was a broken shell of its former self. Still beautiful, isn't it? Said Captain Torres, joining her at the viewport. He was an older man, one of the few humans old enough to remember the stories his grandfather had told about Earth before the burning. Beautiful and dead, Elena replied. Look at those craters. The entire eastern coast of what used to be North America is just gone. They could see the scars clearly now. Massive wounds in the planet's surface where Zephyrian weapons had struck 3 centuries ago. The oceans were a sickly brown color, poisoned by radiation and debris. No clouds moved in the atmosphere. No lights twinkled on the night side. Earth was a tomb. "Sir?" came a voice from behind them. Lieutenant Park, the ship's communications officer, approached with a concerned expression. "We're receiving a transmission. It's coming from the planet." Captain Torres frowned. "That's impossible. Our scouts confirmed Earth is dead. Nothing could have survived down there." "Sir, the signal is definitely coming from the surface. It's weak and distorted, but it's human." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. After 300 years, could there really be survivors on Earth? The very idea seemed impossible. The Zephyrians had been thorough in their destruction. They had bombed every city, poisoned every water source, burned every forest. Nothing should have lived through that hell. "Put it through," Captain Torres ordered. The voice that crackled through the speakers was weak and filled with static, but unmistakably human. "Colonial Fleet, this is Bunker 7, North American Sector. We've been waiting for you to come home." Elena felt tears running down her cheeks. She wasn't alone. All around the observation deck, hardened soldiers were crying as they listened to the voice of their homeworld calling to them across the centuries. "Bunker 7, this is Captain Torres of the Terran Colonial Fleet. How many of you are there?" 43,000 in our sector, the voice replied. "Maybe more in other bunkers? We've lost contact with most of them over the years. The radiation storms knock out our equipment." Torres looked at Elena, his eyes wide with amazement. 43,000 people had survived on Earth, hidden in underground bunkers. They had endured 3 centuries of radiation and isolation, waiting for the day when their people would return. "We're coming down," Torres said into the communicator. "Prepare for extraction." "Sir," Elena said quietly, "we can't land the main ships. The radiation levels are still too high." "Then we use shuttles, full hazmat protocols. I don't care if we have to carry them out one at a time. We're not leaving our people behind again." Elena nodded and began organizing the rescue mission. It would be dangerous. Earth's atmosphere was still poisonous, and the surface was covered with radioactive debris. But these were their people. The last children of Earth, who had somehow survived the worst genocide in galactic history. As the shuttle crews prepared for descent, Elena received another message from the Fleet Command. Admiral Webb was requesting a full tactical assessment of Earth's defensive potential. The planet might be damaged, but it was still humanity's birth world. It had symbolic value that could not be measured. "Sir," Lieutenant Park called out again, "we're receiving multiple signals now. Bunkers across the planet are coming online. It looks like our arrival triggered some kind of automated response." Elena watched as the tactical displays lit up with dozens of signal sources. Underground facilities that had been dormant for centuries were suddenly active. The survivors had not just been hiding. They had been preparing. "Get me a full scan of the planet," Torres ordered. "I want to know what else is down there." The results were astounding. Deep beneath Earth's scarred surface, the scanners detected massive underground complexes. Not just survival bunkers, but manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, and weapons depots. The survivors had not simply endured, they had been working. "Sir," the scanner operator reported, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from the planetary core. It looks like they've built a defensive grid throughout the entire planet." Elena stared at the readings in amazement. While the colonial fleets had been growing strong in the outer rim, the survivors on Earth had been turning their homeworld into a fortress. Hidden weapons platforms rose from the ruins of old cities. Orbital defense stations, disguised as debris, came online around the planet. Earth was not just a grave. It was a trap waiting to spring. "This is Bunker 7, the voice from the surface said again. "Colonial Fleet, we need to warn you. The galaxy has assembled a fleet. They're coming to finish what they started." Elena looked at the long-range sensors. The voice was right. A massive armada was approaching the solar system. Ships from every major galactic power united under a single banner, the largest fleet in galactic history, all focused on one goal, making sure humanity stayed extinct this time. How many ships? Torres asked. Over 300, Lieutenant Park reported. Zephyrian dreadnoughts, Alteran carriers, Vorth crystal fortresses. They've even brought the old Calvani deep space monitors out of storage. Torres smiled grimly. They really don't want us to come back, do they? Elena studied the tactical displays. The approaching fleet was massive, but she noticed something interesting about their formation. They were arranged for a traditional space battle, the kind that had been fought for centuries. Ship against ship, weapon against weapon. They had no idea what they were really facing. Sir, she said, request permission to implement Protocol 7. Protocol 7. Elena had hoped they would never need to use it. It was the most closely guarded secret of the colonial fleet, a weapon system that even most of their own people didn't know about. It had been developed in the deepest laboratories of the Outer Rim, designed by scientists who had grown up on stories of Earth's burning. Are you sure? Torres asked. Once we activate it, there's no going back. The galaxy will know exactly what we're capable of. Sir, they're coming to commit genocide again. This time, we make sure they understand why that's a bad idea. Torres nodded slowly. Send the authorization codes to Admiral Webb. Tell him we're ready to show the galaxy what 300 years of anger looks like. As Elena began the preparations, she thought about the children in the underground bunkers of Earth. They had never seen a blue sky or felt rain on their faces. They had grown up in metal corridors lit by artificial suns, learning about the world their ancestors had lost. They deserved better than to hide in the dark forever. The galactic fleet was still hours away, but Elena could already see them on the long-range sensors. Hundreds of ships filled with aliens who thought they were coming to finish an old war. They had no idea they were about to start a new one. Contact from Admiral Webb, Lieutenant Park announced. All ships are to take positions around Earth. The defensive grid is coming online. Elena watched as human ships moved into formation around their homeworld. They were outnumbered 3-1, but they had advantages the galaxy couldn't imagine. They had been preparing for this day since the moment the first refugee ship had escaped the original purge. Sir, she said to Captain Torres, what do we tell the bunkers? The captain looked at Earth one more time, his weathered face set with determination. Tell them to hold on. Tell them their children are coming home, and tell them that this time we're not running. The final battle for humanity's right to exist was about to begin. But this time they would not be victims. This time they would show the galaxy what happened to those who tried to destroy the human spirit. The last children of Earth were about to come home. Fleet Admiral Kestar of the Galactic Defense Force watched the tactical displays with growing confidence. His armada was the largest ever assembled in galactic history. 312 ships from every major civilization, all united, with one purpose, to finish the human problem once and for all. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're approaching the edge of the Sol system. Human fleet detected ahead. How many ships? Kestar asked. 57 vessels, sir. They're in defensive formation around the third planet. Kestar's feathers ruffled with satisfaction. 57 ships against over 300. The humans had grown arrogant during their exile. They thought their new technology made them invincible. Today, they would learn the price of challenging the established order. All ships, prepare for battle, he commanded. Today we finish what? We started 3 centuries ago. But as the galactic fleet moved deeper into the system, strange things began to happen. The space around them started to shimmer and twist. Reality itself seemed to bend as the human ships began their response. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the human flagship Endurance, watching the alien armada approach. Around him, his officers worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Sir, reported Commander Chun, the galactic fleet is entering optimal range. All ships activate dimensional fold. Webb ordered. What happened next defied everything the galactic powers thought they knew about physics. The 57 human ships suddenly became hundreds. Each vessel split into multiple versions of itself, existing in several dimensions at the same time. The aliens found themselves facing not 50 ships, but 500. Impossible. Kestar screeched as his sensors went wild. How many ships are there? I don't know, sir, his tactical officer replied, her voice shaking. The readings keep changing. It's like they're there and not there at the same time, Webb smiled coldly. Dimensional folding had been humanity's greatest breakthrough. By existing in multiple realities simultaneously, each ship could attack from dozens of different angles while being nearly impossible to hit. It was technology born from 3 centuries of having nothing to lose. Begin Phase 2, Webb commanded. Around Earth, the planet's hidden defenses came online. What the galactic fleet had thought was a dead world revealed itself to be the most heavily fortified planet in the galaxy. Weapons platforms rose from the ruins of ancient cities. Orbital defense stations uncloaked all around the planet. The very moon opened up to reveal massive railguns that could punch holes through the largest dreadnoughts. Sir, Kestar's sensor operator called out in panic. The planet itself is armed. I'm reading weapon signatures from everywhere. The first volley from Earth's defenses was devastating. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the planet's surface, striking the galactic fleet with impossible precision. Ships that had seemed invincible just moments before were cut in half by weapons that existed in multiple dimensions, the Alteran. Carrier harmony of spheres exploded in a ball of flame, as dimensional missiles phased through its shields and detonated inside its hull. The mighty Vorth Crystal Fortress Eternal Light shattered like glass when hit by weapons that attacked its molecular structure directly. All ships, return fire. Kestar ordered desperately. The galactic fleet opened up with everything they had. Thousands of weapons fired at once, filling space with deadly energy. But most of their shots passed harmlessly through the dimensional shadows of the human ships. Only a few found their targets, and even those did little damage against the advanced human armor. Meanwhile, the human counterattack was relentless. Their ships moved like ghosts through space, appearing suddenly to deliver devastating strikes before vanishing into other dimensions. Their weapons seemed to ignore the laws of physics, bending space and time to reach their targets. Commander Elena Vasquez watched from the bridge of the Retribution as the battle raged around them. Her ship phased in and out of normal space, its weapons targeting the command vessels of the galactic fleet. Each shot was carefully calculated to cause maximum damage and fear. Target the Zephyrian flagship, she ordered. Let's send Admiral Kestar a personal message. The Retribution's main guns charged up, drawing power from the ship's exotic matter core. The weapon that fired was not a simple energy beam, but a focused disruption field that could tear apart the strongest shields. Kestar watched in horror as the human ship appeared directly in front of his flagship. The weapon that struck his vessel didn't just damage it, it began unmaking it at the atomic level. Hull plates simply ceased to exist. Systems failed as their very structure was dissolved. Abandoned ship, he screamed as his bridge began to fall apart around him, but it was too late for most of his crew. The Retribution's weapon had turned the pride of the Zephyrian fleet into an expanding cloud of particles. Only a few escape pods managed to launch. Before the flagship completely disintegrated. All across the battlefield, the story was the same. The galactic fleet, for all its size and power, was helpless against technology they couldn't understand. Ships that had ruled space for centuries were being destroyed by weapons that seemed like magic. Sir, Webb's communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender requests from multiple vessels. Webb nodded. Accept them. But make it clear, any ship that continues to fight will be destroyed. The battle had lasted only 37 minutes. Of the 312 ships that had entered the Sol system, less than 100 remained. The rest had been destroyed or forced to surrender by a human fleet that had seemed impossibly outnumbered, but the victory was about more than just the battle. It was a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity was back, and they were no longer the weak species that could be pushed around by their betters on the surface of Earth. In the deep bunkers where the survivors had waited for 3 centuries, celebrations began. Children who had never seen the sky danced with joy as they learned that their long nightmare was finally over. The last children of Earth were free. Admiral Webb opened a communication channel that broadcast across the entire galaxy. His voice reached every world, every station, every ship that possessed a receiver. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, "today you witnessed the return of humanity. For 300 years you believed us extinct. You were wrong. We survived. We grew strong, and we remembered everything." He paused, letting his words sink in across countless worlds. "Today we offer the galaxy a choice. You can accept us as equals with all the rights and territories that implies. You can acknowledge that we have earned our place through the oldest law of all, the law of survival. Or you can continue to treat us as extinct, in which case we will be happy to demonstrate what an extinct species is truly capable of." The aftermath of the Battle of Seoul changed everything. Within days, delegations from every major power were requesting meetings with human representatives. The Galactic Senate voted to recognize the Terran colonial empire as a sovereign state. Reparations were negotiated. Territory was officially granted, but perhaps most importantly, new laws were passed to ensure that what had happened to humanity could never happen to any species again. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the price of genocide. In the underground cities of the Outer Rim, human children learned about the day their species came home. They learned about the price of survival and the cost of remembering. They learned that sometimes the only way to ensure peace was to be too dangerous to attack. The galaxy had thought they had seen the last of humanity. Instead, they had witnessed the birth of something far more powerful, a species that had learned that the only way to guarantee their survival was to become the thing their enemies feared most. Humanity was back, and they would never be victims again.